be some questions that need to be asked and answered. We got a lot of folks that are going to be on our telephone lines today, local and long distance. And I can tell you, it's going to be one of those shows that's going to make you go, uh-oh. He's going to be making some people feel very uncomfortable. And that's just what we're going to do. So make sure that you are calling somebody and letting them know that we're going to have this conversation. We're going to be talking about a case that happened several years ago. Okay? And I think that we have to do these because when you have questions and a loved one is lost, you have to make sure that folks understand that, you know what, just because somebody classified it as something else doesn't necessarily mean that's what it is. And when you start doing your own investigation to find out the truth, sometimes things just don't add up. So I had the pleasure of having a conversation earlier this week, or last week, I think it was last week, with a lady by the name of Amy Donaldson. Ms. Donaldson is the mother of Seth Donaldson. Seth Donaldson lost his life here in New Orleans, originally from Hendersonville, North Carolina, but came down here and was working at Commander's Palace. And then evidently was hanging out with some of his friends. And there are some questions on how he ended up losing his life by apparently being either thrown or jumped out of a 12-story window of a building. So since that time that I've had this conversation with Ms. Donaldson, and I don't blame her. I really do not. She is dogmatic about finding out the truth. And sometimes you have to take things in your own hands to find out when you feel that, some folks just aren't doing what they're supposed to do. So that's her son. And I got to tell you, I would do the same thing if that was my child. And with my analogy of that, I thought it was in my best interest, after talking to some folks, that I go ahead on and do that. Take this case and talk about it. Because I would want somebody to do it for me. I would want somebody to find out the truth. I would want someone, if I didn't get the help that I needed, to give me the answers to these questions that I have. And after talking to her, because I had the opportunity of talking to her several times, and even this morning, she came on our program this morning when we're doing our live podcast and said, hey, look, these are the questions I have. I have 51 unanswered questions that don't even seem right. So I submitted them to find out what the heck is going on. So I submitted them to the Independent Police Monitor's office. Independent Police Monitor's office submitted them to the NOPD. And my question is, did you get an answer back? Because you put in a complaint. So far, what I am finding out is that she did not get the answer that she's looking for. Or any answer. Not just the answer that she's looking for, but any answer. Because there was no one that answered her. Which, if that is the case, that is a shame and a disgrace for somebody that is grieving. Because I know that you would want somebody to do that for your child, for your mother, if things didn't seem right. And things don't seem right at all. The second part of this, I gotta ask some questions, is how do you jump through? How does a young man that is 5 feet 6, 5 feet 8, somewhere in that area, how does he jump through a window? I mean, just jump through a window that's 12 stories high, when the codes for our windows for high rises has to be a little bit better. Because y'all remember, after Hurricane Katrina, you couldn't walk down the sidewalk over there by the Hyatt. Remember why? Because after the storm had damaged those windows so bad that glass was falling from those windows onto the sidewalk, and folks were walking under the sidewalk. You could die. You could get cut. So the code of what we were doing, as far as the type of windows that were placed in high rises, had to change, right? So that code changed. And so I'm still trying to figure out what type of windows would allow somebody to break the glass and just jump out a window. Don't sound right. Or did you raise the window up and jump out the window? Which, we know he didn't, because the windows were broken. And as we saw photos or saw pictures of the glass, it was the same type of glass that I would put in my house. The same type of glass that I would put in a kitchen window. So that's what's protecting us in these high rises. So if that's the case, I guess my question would be, do we have the right type of glass in these high rises? If you're up on the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 12th, 15th, 20th floor of these buildings, of these high-rise buildings, are you protected? Is the right glass protecting you from falling? Because apparently it's not. So let me tell you who's joining us today. Let me give you some insight. And I know you got to go do your break. This afternoon, you're going to hear a report. The report is from Channel 4, WWL television. Katie Moore did a series, and that series is called Shallow. And it is about the death of Seth Donaldson. Seth is the son of Amy Donaldson, who is saying that something's wrong. My son did not commit suicide. Something's wrong here. And with that being said, Katie has done a 3-part piece to this. And I'm like, oh, baby, she did the work. So me being who I am, talking to Miss Donaldson myself, I said, Miss Donaldson, I said, did you put in a complaint? She said, yeah, I put in a complaint because I'm not getting all the information that I need to know about my son's death. I said, well, who did you put the complaint in to? She said, I put the complaint in to the independent police monitor. And that's it. I said, that's all? Nothing else happened? She said, no, nothing else happened. I put the complaint in. I haven't heard back from them. Nobody has said nothing. I said, okay. I said, so is this a complaint that you're waiting for to hear from the independent police monitor, or you're waiting to hear back from NOPD? She said, I'm waiting to hear back from NOPD. I said, but the police monitor is the one that put the report together. She said, yes. So me being who I am, I called the independent police monitor. Talked a good little while. The independent police monitor is going to join us. The deputy chief is going to join us today about 2:30. Then I talked to Miss Donaldson. I said, Miss Donaldson, I said, I need you to come on the air and tell everybody what's going on. And she said, what time? So Miss Donaldson is also going to join us to give us the insight. Plus, you're going to hear the story that Katie Moore put together called Shallow that ran on WWL television. And after that, Katie Moore going to join us to talk about it. I think the only thing missing here in this conversation is you need to take a break. Yeah, that's what's missing. All right. My producer told me, you better put me in there somewhere. Y'all, we got to take a break. We'll come back. We'll start up the first. I'm like, you sure they still have this class? I want to know what Katie Moore did. Putting this story together, putting together two and two before I get involved, because I want to know what did she do and what did she find out. Because the information that has come out of this is so overwhelming. I'm like, you sure they still have this classified as a suicide? And let me tell some folks here before we get into the story, this is disturbing. It is very disturbing. And if you cannot handle it, I understand if you turn it off. One. So we have to do due diligence. And I'm a little apprehensive in asking questions and how this came about. I think that you too have to ask those questions. And I think this program, did it come up yet, or is it still buffering? It's still buffering with? Okay, all right. I'm just looking around and just saying, I'm still shaking my head. And if you were with us this morning, this is what you heard. Go for it.
The world's a crazy place. You love it or you hate it. You love it and you hate it, right? I mean, it's both.
I'm pretty sure that he just stood up off the couch and jumped through the window.
He was infectious. Like his mood and his laugh.
He was on his hand? The blood was on his hand, yeah.
When did you start to get mad?
When I started believing that I was not being told the whole story.
You know, he was always encouraging people and always making people feel special.
I don't buy suicide. I just don't.
Someone's died. Someone's got a bloody nose. Something happened.
Yeah, you could kill it now. Oh, no.
Seth
Seth worked 2 shifts at restaurants that night, in the morning at Commander's Palace and at night at Gree. He fell to his death the morning of October 28th, out a 12th floor window in the Saratoga Lofts building in the CBD. Seth had drugs in his system and he was hanging out with 2 of his friends from back home, North Carolina. They say Seth jumped through the window, and when police arrived, one of those friends had a bloody nose. The police report says suicide, and the autopsy report also says suicide. But the Donaldsons have so many questions about how Seth died that they're continuing to push for answers. And there were questions in my mind, too, that I just couldn't seem to shake. So we came here to Hendersonville, North Carolina, thinking maybe this is the place to start. And we found a lot of answers, but still have a lot of questions.
Was he shot? No.
First we heard a balcony.
He fell onto a balcony.
He confided.
What?
Fall into a window.
What happened?
Taking a little video right now. Video.
The autopsy report says suicide. The police report says suicide. But the Donaldsons and even some of those with ties to the investigation say they're not so sure.
What made you guys feel like you needed to investigate this yourself, basically?
Because just none of it just didn't make sense.
It helps, I guess, to be doing the investigation because I feel like I can do something.
I mean, you feel it every single meal.
1.5 cups of water,
He's a chef.
orange juice, lemon juice.
Phone calls, emails,
This is,
social media.
lemon, ginger.
30, 20 milligram roof pebbles going 40 miles an hour. I mean, this has become my job. Phones, there were drones, for the rest of my life. Oh, everywhere I go now and punch windows.
Do you miss him?
Yes.
Yes, I miss him every day.
We met Abby Hudson at Jump Off Rock. It's a scenic overlook on top of a rock that juts out over the Smoky Mountains. She says she and Seth used to come here a lot to talk about just about everything.
He was infectious. Like his mood and his laugh and everything was, but like his perspective on life was infectious.
There's just not many people in your life that care for you in the way that Seth cared about people.
Michaela Bignino met Seth in culinary school, and their friendship, as platonic as it was, went well beyond food.
He just had a very high emotional quotient. He was very empathetic and he could pick up on, what was wrong with people.
Seth had a job lined up at a new restaurant. Amy says they talked about it the night before he died at around 10:30.
He started his countdown, 20 more days till I come home.
Michaela was proud of her culinary school classmate. She was excited that he was getting a chef's job at a brand new restaurant. And within minutes of meeting her, it was clear how much she misses him.
We all want to know what happened because there's no part of me that thinks that he would want to commit suicide or want to jump out of a window.
We're not afraid of suicide. We're not criticizing anyone whose family succumbed to suicide, but we know the people Seth was with. And to call this a suicide is to give those other 2 an out and not explain their motives or what was going on in all the details.
Those two of Seth's friends from high school, who we'll call John and Kelly. Those are not their real names. We're changing them because John and Kelly are not accused of a crime. They're witnesses to a death. Amy says John posted this video in the comments on one of her Facebook posts just a few hours before Seth died. Here's how Kelly describes the night to police in the NOPD's body camera footage.
Did he drink a lot when he was on bourbon? None of us drank. Okay. None of us drank. We were just walking around enjoying the environment. Okay.
I think he made one mistake. Hanging out with a friend shouldn't have hung out with.
I just felt like he got mixed into the wrong crowd
and he's very impressionable.
He got arrested. And
Was that a wake-up call?
I didn't get him out of jail. He's 28 days in jail. I mean, I could have gotten him out, but I'm not going to get him out.
The soccer fields that Seth played on is a park over that way. Soccer mom, tennis mom, basketball mom, a cross-country mom, swim mom.
Detective.
What in the world could have changed? Somebody deleted stuff. There's a lot of questions here. There were 70 pages of emails that I had sent to Marcia Scallon.
Amy's work on this case has been staggering. When we visited, she showed us this big binder that she has that's full of information, leads that she's found on the investigation, and what she says are problems with how police have handled theirs. So you had 51 points that you felt
51
were mishandled by police.
Amy is a very driven person already. I feel like if anybody's capable of getting to the finish line, it's her and Scott. I mean, and they loved Seth so much.
Is it hard to watch them?
Yes. That's why I avoid it sometimes.
For months, Amy's mind has been mired in questions.
Memory for him to go away.
Did Seth jump? Did he fall? What happened to a key piece of evidence in the case? And how do you fall through a glass window 12 stories high?
All right, folks. Some questions.
Seth Donaldson fell to it.
Some more questions. And some more questions. Coming up, what we'll do is we'll call Miss Amy Donaldson, Seth's mother. She's in Hendersonville, North Carolina, but we're going to call her and see if we can talk to her and find out more about this story. All right. More coming up. Everybody hold tight. If you want to get in on the conversation, 504, I'd love to hear from you too, what you think. 504-582-9422 is my number. 504-582-9422. I want to hear from you too.
It's her and
We're back with more Reality Check on WBOK. Call in with your comments and questions at 504-582-9422. All right, folks, welcome back. It is Tuesday. Reality Check is on. My name is Gerard Stevens. Glad to have your company. Make sure you get your calls in, too. 504-582-9422 is our number. 504-582-9422. Today, a conversation that I'm shaking my head about a lot. As I watch the video, as I watch the investigative report that was put together by Katie Moore, who is the anchor and also investigative reporter over at Channel 4 WWL, and having conversation with a couple of other folks in the city that know about this case. Let me be the first to tell you that some folks that I've picked up the phone to call has basically ignored that I'm calling or saying that they don't want to comment. So evidently we're going to and are stepping on some toes. That's okay. I always look at it this way. If we step on somebody's toe, just know you have 9 more that we got to step on. And they're not going to call you lefty for a reason. For no reason whatsoever. All right? So let's go to Hendersonville, North Carolina, and have a conversation very quickly here. Miss Amy Donaldson is on the phone. This is Seth Donaldson's mother. Miss Amy, how are you?
I'm okay. How are you doing?
I think I'm calling you a little early too because I'm just anxious right now because I've been calling all these folks. Some have agreed to be on the show today. Katie Moore from Channel 4, because I know she did most of the work here in putting this together. She's also going to comment with us, and I also have one of the deputy IPM monitors, independent police monitors. She's going to also talk to us about the complaint that you put in. So I don't know if she's got some new details or details that she can't tell, but she is going to give us some information on how this thing is supposed to work. Okay?
Okay.
So I'm putting all those different things together. There's some more calls that I made that I just can't say live on the air right now, and I'm just waiting for them to confirm. And if they confirm while the show is going on, then I'll make sure you know first.
Mm-hmm.
You're not getting anywhere with this story. I can imagine the feeling, and God rest his soul, and my prayers are with you and your family. But this dates back to what date?
October the 28th, 2019. 2018.
2018.
So 400 and a year and 100 and something days.
So we are talking about a year, at least a year and a half, at least a year and a half.
Right, close to.
And what about this story made you say, this is not right? This is not my son. You're not telling me that my son was so depressed or something was wrong that he felt like he had to jump out of a 12-story window.
Well, it wasn't even about depression or Seth in particular. It was more about a window. I mean, I just have been a lot of places, and I've lived in New Orleans, and I know about. I mean, my kids were born in New Orleans. We followed Katrina very well, very closely. We weren't living there at that time, and I'm not an idiot. I know about hurricane-proof windows, and then within 24 hours. The witness that was there, whom I have a very severe distrust of and have for a long time, that I didn't think of being a friend to Seth, and Seth did not think of him being a friend, sent me a video of that window. So just based on what the window did, I knew we had a problem, and what his behavior has acted like, I knew we had a problem. And I just knew Seth, and I had my husband and daughter had seen Seth just about 2 weeks earlier. They'd been down there. I had been down there about 2 months earlier. I had talked to Seth that night. So I knew his state of mind, at least 4 or 5 hours before this took place. So there just were a lot of things that were pretty obviously messed up.
Now, Seth is here for school? He was in culinary school.
No, he did culinary school here in North Carolina, but he spent 2 summers, the summer before this, and then that summer up until through the end of October when he died, in New Orleans working at Commander's Palace.
Mm-hmm.
So the first summer was an internship during his first year. He wasn't paid at Commander's, but they loved him enough to ask him to come back and spend some time there before he was going to be a head chef in North Carolina, in eastern North Carolina. He was going to leave just about 20 days from the time, after the time that he died.
So this was a countdown that he had going on.
He was in a countdown, exactly. Mm-hmm. So he was just waiting for, actually another hurricane had stopped the renovating process or affected it in eastern North Carolina, where he was going to go work, and it was a really great opportunity for him at a young age. He was excited about, and so everybody in New Orleans there were excited to have him back. And you don't get invited back. I've met along the way a number of kids who've been fired from Commander's Palace that were friends of Seth's, and it's an honor and a privilege and a lot of hard work to be there.
So let's talk about this part about it, and I know we went over this morning, but I want to bring a new audience to you today to get more insight on what has transpired or what transpired immediately after you get this telephone call saying that your son is deceased. The investigation and the windows. So the investigation itself was not handled by a homicide detective. It was handled by a detective, but he was not classified as a homicide detective. Am I right in saying that?
Yes, sir. I mean, we weren't told that in the beginning, but that is true.
Now, the body cam footage, in which I've viewed in the report that Katie Moore has, is actually police officers' video that's basically showing the head detective saying, look, if you're going to throw up, don't throw up near the body. And I'm thinking to myself, why would she be even able to throw up near the body if she's not the detective on scene? She's just there taking a report then, right? So there's nothing cording off the body? There's no yellow tape? There's nothing? It's just there?
Well, you're asking the wrong person. I mean, I'm putting all this together and asking these questions and have been since day one as myself.
Mm-hmm.
She was
she's just a patrol.
A rookie. She's a rookie.
Right.
And this is her first death investigation.
Right.
And, there were 11 officers in total, a death investigator from the coroner's office, 3 homicide detectives, 2 Louisiana State troopers, and then she and Marshall, her supervisor, and then his supervisor, and then a third person who was also her supervisor. They were all there, but somehow they threw it down the chain to let the most inexperienced person handle the most, challenging and gruesome thing.
Hold on for 1 minute here. My producer is telling me again that he got to take a break here.
Okay.
And I'm going to come back to you in just a minute.
Sure.
Hold on just a minute. All right, y'all. We take a break here. We come back.
He finally needed to put his foot down. And a letter that we investigation of suicide
from the coroner here, because this is making me
reasonable answer. But I were not a very good listener, or not a person who's going to back down. I would accept that as a reasonable answer. But I guess have a list of very bizarre responses from the NOPD and the coroner's office.
Am I wrong in assuming here, because this is making me scratch my head here, the classification of suicide was given by the death investigator from the coroner's office? Or was this NOPD?
I don't know. I mean, what I know is that from the classification of suicide was formally announced by the coroner, I believe it was January the 19th. Of course, that was just a few days later after he signed for a certified letter that we wrote, which explained the investigation that we had done into the developer and into the windows and into window code. So I guess he finally needed to put his foot down and say, I'm done with her questions.
So it came from him then? It came from the coroner?
Well,
because and the reason why I'm sorry, I don't want to appear like I'm just questioning you, but I'm trying to get the answer to this because I didn't know that the coroner could put a classification together.
Well, I don't believe that the coroner can, but he does have a piece of paper that has 5 boxes on it.
Okay.
One is accidental,
unclassified,
causes,
and
unknown, under investigation, or suicide, or homicide. And he chose to put the box that says suicide.
All right, let me do my top of the hour here real quick. I'm going to ask you this question because my producer is about to come through the window here. I got more coming up. Everybody hold tight. Amy Donaldson's with us next right here on WBOK.
Okay.
Have you heard the secret of what new...
Companionship. Now let's see him in action. Look how he makes eye contact with this person. That's actually known as Satchmo, is to meet one. Visit
4 to 6 p.m.
I think your scent of spring home so much.
For retirement?
Yeah.
Evan, you're going to be savings.
New Orleans is all about community, and for more than 70 years, this station has given voice to the businesses, schools, organizations, and issues that are important in our community. This is Skylar Williams, General Manager of WBOK 1230. I want to make sure...
Okay, kids, Dad's going to teach you how...
Until the homicide, until the coroner gave that permission.
Okay.
And if he ruled it a suicide, then there was no investigation.
Yeah, well,
so I just don't understand how you're going to wait, even in a decent day, 3 months to 4 months for a toxicology report and then do an investigation?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because all your evidence is going to be gone.
Yeah, well, exactly.
So I guess that didn't take anybody to have to go through any type of training for 9 to 10 months to find out that, if you wait this long, that your evidence is going to be gone. So,
right.
Duh.
Right.
The other part of this, too, have you had a chance to listen to the 911 tapes?
To tell you the truth, I have not. My lawyers tried to provide them to me. I was otherwise going to have to pay $90 for them because there are 3 of them, and I just didn't want to do that. My lawyer told me it would make me mad, but since I know that the first call was 6 or 7 minutes after Seth went out the window, and I know that it was the classification of the 911 call says suicide attempt.
Yes.
I'm guessing that somebody has, backed up with a different story.
So it sounded like to me two different things. First of all, it sounded like to me that whoever this was, if I'm sitting back and going, oh my God, somebody just went out the window, before they even hit the ground, I'm on the phone calling. So why is there a lapse between what happened in 6 minutes?
Yeah, well, they went down, I know, and talked to the security guard first, and the security guard made the first call.
What?
I believe.
So they did not call?
Well, the management company.
So the person that's in the room, I don't want to call their names, did not call?
They may have called, but what the police report states is that they went down to the management company, and the management company called.
Second part of this that I would say that I have a problem with is the fact that it is being called in as a suicide, and it's being delivered to the police officers who have to respond as a suicide attempt.
Yeah, well, people who are guilty do that all the time.
Yeah, so somebody, whoever that was, told them, and if it was the management company, why would the management company call the police and tell them that it was a suicide attempt if they didn't see it?
Well, I've got my theories, but I also know that the management company called the second shift security officer and said, don't come in now. We have had a bad, situation. Go out and go buy some donuts for everybody and then come in to work.
Why?
I mean, the management company seems to have been involved very early on.
Does this building have a security system on each floor? You would think
I don't know. I know that the detective, by the time I was absolutely positive that we had to do a lot of work ourselves, by that time, so April 15th was when the those who were renting or leasing the building were that was their April 15th. They were vacated from the building to be renovated. And I know that at the time this happened, the developer had already started ending contracts with people. They weren't renewing their leases, so they were just kind of letting the leases run out. So there weren't a lot of people in the building, and their building was under new ownership. 3 months before Seth died, it was sold from the developer to the present owner, and they had already filed for their permits to renovate the building. So I don't know the status of the security cameras. I was told by the detective that they were poor quality, and there wasn't much to learn from them.
So this was 3 months before the building was sold?
No. The building was sold 3 months before it happened.
3 months before it happened. Okay. All right. So if I'm the developer or the buyer of that building, I want to make sure that my renovations and all the stuff that I'm getting ready to put into this building, there's not going to be a sign that anybody would know that there was a death associated with the building, so that I would have problems leasing these places.
Well, you'd think that would be a priority, but there's a big... last week I was there. They've renovated the whole place. It was open January 1st for new renters, and I'll just say that Seth's all over the balcony. They haven't cleaned it up. Even though they got new furniture there, and they've got new carpet inside, they've got new windows.
Wait, what? What do you mean he's all over the balcony? Oh, my God.
They haven't changed the flooring.
What? As of January?
As of last week. As of last Thursday when I was there.
Okay. Yeah, we need to go drinking. Tell your husband I'm with y'all. Oh, my God.
No, we don't think that doesn't help anymore.
The two eyewitnesses, where are they?
Well, they're not keeping in touch with me. Once I told them I was writing a book and keeping up with everything that they said, they pretty much stopped communicating with me. But the last I knew, after they accused me of stalking in June, I had to meet them at court 3 times from June, July, and August. They were coming up from Atlanta because they had moved to Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
But they're back and forth between here and Atlanta.
So the stories that each one of them gave to the police, as I looked and watched that, they weren't gelling, meaning that he said something different and she said something different. And if I understand you correctly, you're telling me that they've given several different stories.
They have.
But they were there. They were eyewitnesses to this, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So
they're constantly, I mean, I've had to use social media to gather information that the police are not looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And that the police have said, you know, keep agitating them because you're getting more information than we are. So I've agitated them, you know, someone that is very threatening and has accused me of stalking because of my agitation. And he just continues to give me more information that has helped me put together what I believe are the facts.
Mm-hmm.
Not the facts about why he was able to get around, you know, the police, but the facts of, you know, the physical facts of what took place.
So in this story, too, that as I see the body cam footage, I have to go by that. It states that there's some cocaine on one of the drugs. So I'm on the coffee table.
I think it says white powder.
Right. So this was stated in the report that was given by Katie Moore. So as I am talking to the police and they're taking the statement, did anybody check the ID of any one of these witnesses and run a background check on them beforehand to say, you know, let's make sure you're legit here? Because, you know, if I'm driving my car down the street and I get stopped, the first thing I get is somebody saying your registration, your proof of insurance, and your ID. Give me your ID.
Yeah. You know, every question you're going to ask me, I'm probably going to have the same answer, which is I don't know. Because, you know, it's been a year and a half, and all I do is come up with my own questions like that and gather my information that I get from him and from all the other crazy people that are trying to speak for the two of them, and put it together and come up with my own scenario, which may be off, but I can't think of anything that makes more sense than what I've come up with. And you know, I don't get any answers from the police. So I forgot what you asked me about. Did anybody run a background check? No, I don't believe they did. If they didn't collect blood or glass samples and they were gone in 24 minutes, I doubt that they took time to do a background check.
And when you say gone in 24 minutes?
Well, the police report says that they were taken from the Saratoga Loft Apartments to the 8th District office in the French Quarter. I don't know whether it says they arrived there or they were taken there. But anyway, it's 9 o'clock. They entered there, I believe. He pled the fifth. He didn't give a statement either, like I said earlier, either because he wanted his lawyer there or because he was too inebriated or whatever to make a logical statement. And then, though, somehow with that same rookie that we talked about earlier, she's there taking their statement. You know, they're not writing it down, but she's writing it down. Then what happened? Then what happened? And they're saying, and they're being interviewed together, which is way crazy. And then it says that they were taken back to the apartments, Saratoga Loft Apartments, at 9:24. So, you know, a lot and a little happened in 24 minutes.
That's all the questioning, 24 minutes.
That's what the police report says. I mean, like I said, I haven't seen the full-on body cam video.
So am I wrong in assuming, too, here in your investigation, they took them back up to the room?
Well, I don't know who they is. I don't know who went back.
So how did they end up back in the room?
Well, they were escorted by that same rookie.
By the police?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Back to the crime scene.
Back to the crime scene. Well, they're not calling it a crime scene. They're saying it was a suicide, so it wasn't a crime scene.
Where there is a white powder substance. It looks like there had been a struggle in part of the room because I saw the video. As a matter of fact, one of the folks had said to me, said, "Did you see the couch?" I said, "No." I said, He said, "Go back and look at the couch." The couch was broken on one side.
I know.
And there was blood all through the place.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to figure out, was there no samples of the blood taken to find out whose blood it was?
No. I mean, they have confirmed that they did not take blood samples. They did say that they took the sample of, they took the cocaine, but they didn't test it.
What? Wait. They didn't test it?
Well, Katie Moore, when she did her report in May, said that the police would not confirm whether it was tested or not. So to me, that means they didn't test it. But I don't, however the police want to say they did or didn't test it. So, that evidence person is another person that we have named in our second complaint with the Integrity Bureau.
Mm-hmm. And it sounds like to me, Ms. Donaldson, please forgive me for my ignorance, but it sounds like to me that every question that is being asked here, you're not getting any cooperation.
Absolutely. Listen, and Katie Moore somehow, bless her heart, didn't get the message that this is not to be reported on. But I have reams and reams of emails. We met on the same day that we met with Scallon and Brian Laparollery in the coroner's office. We met with a reporter, Hannah Kruger, at the Times-Picayune, who had, she didn't write the article, but she was the contact given to us by the writer of a former, 8 months earlier, Cole Whaley, died somewhat similarly at the Doubletree. And it was Valentine's weekend at the Doubletree. He came down from Mississippi with a fraternity house. He was at a party beforehand, lots of drinking, lots of witnesses. And it was ruled an accident. But that he was charging at a window that was down a hallway. And he rammed it, and he rammed it, and he rammed it, and then the window went out of the the window didn't break, the glass didn't break, but the frame around it came apart from the building. Mm-hmm. So he died there. And, of course, the person who, WWL reported on that, NOLA.com reported on that, the Advocate reported on it, and it was very well written about. Mm-hmm. And so my brother-in-law, who is a Duke professor, public health person, 8 days after Seth's situation, wrote to the author of that article and said, "What's up? Why haven't y'all written about this? That seems mysterious after 8 days not to have gotten the police." So that started a whole several months long question about whether or not there was an actual police report. Mm-hmm. Because we heard from the Lens and from the Advocate and from the Times-Picayune up through February that there was no police report filed.
Oh, wow.
That they could confirm what I was saying. I mean, I was basically giving them all the information I had and them saying, this is hearsay. To the point that I said, well, I guess I'll have to file a missing persons report because I still didn't have a police report, and the media didn't have a police report. So I told the detective I'm about to file a missing persons report. And then I just decided, well, how about let's do this, because I don't trust the police to even respond to a missing persons report. I paid my $280, I think, to the Advocate on Mardi Gras Day and published, because nobody there was really editing obituaries. But I published his obituary saying that he died tragically and named the location. And, of course, that's the first time I've been calling, and we've sent certified letters, and we've been down there twice already, but we hadn't been able to get anybody's attention. But the next day, that's how I got the first of 2 phone calls from the chief of police.
Okay, so now, there's been a change in the leadership of the NOPD. I'm not saying that Sean Ferguson doesn't know about this, but this was during the time of Michael Harrison, too, then, correct?
I know.
Okay. So.
Yeah, unfortunately, our certified letter that was signed for by somebody in the police department was signed the day before Michael Harrison announced he was moving to Baltimore.
Okay.
So somebody did or didn't forward this on to Sean Ferguson, which I'm sure he had plenty of other things to worry about, but he's had lots of opportunity to know about it, Seth.
Have you talked to him?
Well, he called me on, the day after Mardi Gras last year, April something. Told me that was the first he'd heard of it when I did my obituary. He called a few days after that to find out if the new detective was how I felt about the case. And I told him I hate to be such a downer, but what I said was, I don't have any good feelings whatsoever because that new detective didn't know anything about the case. You would think that something like this, you'd at least open up the file ahead of calling the family. He called my son. He called him my loved one. He said he didn't know anything about the case. But then when I asked why we wouldn't have the opportunity, why a police report wouldn't be filed in such a way that the media could, help us out, he said that sometimes scenes are so graphic and disturbing that they have to protect the witnesses.
What?
He said, I'm not making this stuff up. He said the reason that they did not file a report was because sometimes when witnesses have seen something this disturbing, their identity needs to be protected.
I don't get it. I'm trying to put 2 and 2 together. This is somebody that saw.
It's just a stupid story. He knew that there was no police report.
Oh.
He's just telling me something BS that I'm supposed to be too stupid to not see through.
This is not a shooting. This isn't retaliation. You're talking about somebody just said that my son just jumped through a window here and I need the police report. I want to see what the investigation has led. If they are saying this in their confession to say, hey, look, this is what I saw eyewitness-wise, then what would they have to look for to be protected? Protected from what?
I didn't have a long conversation about it. I just kind of laughed and said that makes no sense. I told Sean Ferguson that that's what I had heard from the detective, and so from that reason I had zero trust that there was going to be a real investigation. It sounded to me like he was already aware that we were doing what we needed to do to keep this quiet. But I could be wrong.
And so if I had to ask you this, and this is an assumption, this is your opinion. I want to make sure that you say that this is what's going on. Why do you think they're trying to keep this quiet? Or why do you think somebody is trying to keep this quiet?
Well, I have about 4 different theories. I'm kind of like the witness in that case, in that way, I guess. One would be that, what I said earlier this morning to you, that, let's go with what we do know. We know the Hard Rock Cafe collapsed. We know that there's a lot of problems with safety and oversight and with developers.
Mm-hmm.
So there's one reason. Another reason is what a person close to the police department has told me is that the city, has had of course, they're trying to reduce their homicide rate. And if you have an opportunity to do that in 5 minutes and call something a suicide, there you go. That helps.
Mm-hmm.
And I do know that during the time that we were working with the reporter from the Times-Picayune, she was, before it was ruled a suicide, they were asking the coroner's office for the reports on unclassified deaths, because there seemed to be quite a number of them. And this is a new coroner. He's coming in. He'd only been there 4 months when this took place. And it seems like, timing-wise at least, maybe there was a need to classify a lot of deaths. That's 1, 2, 3. And then, I can't imagine that this 22-year-old from Hendersonville would have a lot of pull that the coroner would want to protect. But that's a possibility. And then the other possibility is where I start to sound like a crazy person, but my husband did run for Congress against a person who is best friends with our president. And we were threatened on TV 8 months before this happened.
Oh, wow.
So I'll just keep that one quiet. We can talk about that later.
Yeah, because, wow. Jeez. Tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to let you go for a minute and get your breath, and I'm going to call you back.
Okay.
Because I got to do a couple of more interviews here.
Sure.
I'm going to tell you, if you can, log in so you can hear.
I will.
Because I am calling the IPM. She's going to be on in about 4 minutes to give us the details. Because what I want to know is when you put in your complaint, which she already confirmed that you did. I think she said 2 of them. Mm-hmm. When they put them together, they are supposed to be able to give them to the police, and they're supposed to fill them out and do what they're supposed to do. Why you don't have that information yet? So we're going to find out. We're going to find out next.
Well, I have the information on one of them.
Well, you need them on both.
Right.
So I'll find out next.
Okay.
I think, a lot of people.
It's important for you to talk to someone about it, to bring the family in on it. I saw
different. It could be Alzheimer's.
I'm probably okay to I just popped some gum in my mouth.
Stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend.
Community, and for more of WBOK.
Connecting our community for over 7. Call in with your comments and questions at 504-582-9422. All right, folks, welcome back. Reality check is on. It is WBOK, 12:30 a.m. What New Orleans is talking about. My name is Gerard Stevens. Check your time, about 2:31 now, as we were listening to Ms. Donaldson from Hendersonville, North Carolina, giving us the details about what she is finding out about this investigation. and I got to tell you, I text one of my friends over at the IPM, Independent Police Monitor's office, and got an answer very quickly. So I got to say, is that Miss Stella on the phone? That's her? That's her on the phone? Okay. Miss Stella?
I think you got me instead. It's Katie Moore with WWL.
Okay, that's Katie. Katie, I'm sorry. I'm supposed to call you at 3 o'clock. So
it's all good.
But I'll take you now. How about if I take you now?
Okay.
Can I take you now?
I think that sounds great.
So that'll give you more of time to get ready for the afternoon program here. So let me first of all say thank you for participating. Because when I saw your story, I think I sat there with my mouth wide open. The entire, because I think you did 3 series, a 3-part series.
It was a 3-part series that we did about the whole story, and then what Amy's been doing to try and investigate it, and all of the questions that surround what happened to Seth.
Mm-hmm. If I looked at this and said, "Oh my God, what in the world did Katie go through and try putting this together?" Because I could expect how many folks went and said, "I don't want to be a part of this. I don't want you to say this, da da da." But your report was very thorough. Now I got to ask you about the panes, the window panes.
Sure.
Your guy that you had as the professional that showed how these glasses would shadow I mean, shallow. I mean, just boom, breaking apart. I think he hit one. It didn't break as far as the plate is concerned. But if he hit it from the corner, it would just break in all different types of pieces.
Yeah.
What did you find out as far as what is in these glasses in these high rises?
Well, that I think is one of the biggest takeaways from the whole series, and I think a lot of people don't realize that whenever they're staying in older buildings, that windows don't necessarily have to be up to modern code. So what we found with the Saratoga Loft building was that the windows appear to be single-pane windows that break pretty, I don't want to say easily, but they break pretty easily compared to a tempered glass window, which is what you saw when you saw the gentleman break the glass by hitting the corner of it. That's called tempered glass, and it's created under pressure so that the glass doesn't shatter in those big shards like single-pane windows do. So there are many, many different kinds of glass that you can have in different windows, whether that be car windows or building windows or even just glass that you say on your cell phone. I mean, lots of different types of glass. What is typically used in windows that are building windows these days is glass that has multiple layers to it so that it's thicker and then it's more difficult to break and that it doesn't shatter in the way that we saw those windows shatter whenever Seth went through them. So the most dangerous kind of windows are the ones that are single pane windows that shatter in those big shards that are really sharp. I don't know if you've ever accidentally cut your hand on a piece of glass that's broken.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Those are the kind of windows that are the most dangerous because, they can cut you so easily. And not only that, but obviously you can go through them.
But I would think that they wouldn't be able to put those types of windows in a responsible person wouldn't put those types of windows in a high-rise building, and especially after Katrina, because I thought that we were supposed to be under code, which is hurricane-proof windows that would be under some type of pressure to say, hey, we could withstand 140-mile-an-hour winds. I thought that was code.
Yeah, you would think so. And there were some changes made to our state codes after Katrina, but one of the things that was done was we adopted the International Building Code, and that's a good thing. It requires, certain things for construction of any type of building anywhere in the state. And what we learned through our investigation is that these historic buildings that are historic renovations get an exception for the windows and for things that are in the building when it's a historic building. So it's a tiny little part of the International Building Code that says that they can get exempted. And in this case, they were exempted. Now, I think what's significant about Amy's situation is that, shortly after Seth's death, when they've submitted plans, the Royal Sonesta, which is the company that bought the building, when they submitted plans to renovate the building and turn it into a timeshare property, they redid all the windows. So what does that tell you?
Wow. So they knew, they found out. Well, I'm not going to say they knew, but they found out very quickly that something was wrong there.
Right.
So did anybody say anything about what was there, why they redid them? Or they just...
No, they didn't comment for our story, but I also know that, the Donaldsons have sued the property and the property owner. So I think there's a litigation factor there. Whenever anybody gets sued, they tend to not want to talk to you about stuff.
Right. I asked Miss Donaldson, I said, Miss Amy, I said, one of the things, too, that bothers me about this is the classification of Seth's death. Your findings. Who classified Seth's death as a suicide? Was it the coroner or NOPD? Because I didn't know that the coroner could classify it.
Sure. The way that the process works, and I think a lot of people don't really realize this, is that the coroner actually makes the classification, and then the NOPD determines whether or not any laws were broken in how that person died. So the coroner says it's either a suicide or a homicide, which means that somebody died at the hands of another person. It's up to the NOPD to decide whether or not it's a murder. and whether or not somebody intentionally killed that other person.
Okay.
So in this particular case, Orleans Parish Coroner Dwight McKenna determined that Seth committed suicide. And so that's what his classification has remained. And I know that the Donaldsons have been frustrated in their dealings with the coroner and with how this whole thing has been handled.
Now, it is not against the law, if I'm not mistaken, for the coroner to come back and change his findings, correct?
Correct, but they don't like to do it for a lot of reasons. But it's extremely difficult to get a coroner to go back on their initial findings, whether that's pride or whether that's common practice or whatever it is. It's really hard to do. And in this case, the Donaldsons haven't had much luck.
Right. And the investigator that was there investigating right after the scene was set forth was not a homicide detective.
So there were homicide detectives at the scene. There were a number of different police officers who were there. The first people at the scene were the Louisiana State Police, because they, of course, as we know, help in the French Quarter to, boost the NOPD's manpower. And so it was Voodoo Fest weekend when this happened, and so the Louisiana State Police were the first ones there. Then the NOPD district detectives arrived. They apparently are the first ones to investigate when anything major happens in the 8th district. And then homicide was called in. So you did have homicide detectives at the scene, but they were kind of the third wave of law enforcement that got there to investigate.
One of the things, too, that Ms. Donaldson said was there were 2 or 3 homicide detectives on the scene, but they were called to another scene because rapper Young Greatness had been killed.
Yeah, I'm not positive on the timing of all that. I haven't really looked into that.
Okay.
But Amy does do her homework, so.
Yeah, I would say she's pretty thorough. She's pretty thorough. And one of the things, too, that made me go, why didn't they investigate this, is because they had a white powdery substance on the coffee table. One of the witnesses had a bloody nose. The stories between the 2 witnesses are not gelling. I'm sorry. I've never gone to any type of school for any type of investigation like this, but I'm saying to myself, doesn't that kind of make you say some foul play is there?
Right, and I think that's why Amy has filed multiple complaints with the New Orleans Police Department's Public Integrity Bureau. I believe that they closed the first complaint that she filed without finding any wrongdoing on the part of the officers, but Amy has filed subsequent complaints against a number of police officers, even all the way up, I believe, to the superintendent of police, for the failure to fully investigate. At least that's her opinion, that they failed to fully investigate this. And I think that there are some valid questions there, and I think that's why, we did a report on it.
Yeah,
we spent so much time looking into it.
Even background checks on the 2 witnesses. None. No background checks. Because I'm like, if we get pulled over today in our car, the first thing that comes out of the officer's mouth is, I need a proof of registration. I need your license. I need your license. Let me run a background check on you to see if anything's wrong. If you got any warrants. Anything is wrong with you. So if I'm doing a background investigation on somebody, at least it'll give me some type of information on who I'm looking at, who I'm dealing with, and no checking his car.
So, yeah, it doesn't appear that they checked his car, and it doesn't. I don't know what police did or did not do in terms of looking into the backgrounds of the suspects who were there. Suspects/witnesses. I guess they're witnesses at this point because it's not anything other than a suicide, according to current investigations. But I don't know what police did and what they did not do. It was an open investigation whenever we did those stories last year. So it was pretty difficult to get information about what was done and what wasn't done. And that's why Amy said I couldn't find out if they tested any of the drugs, the alleged drugs that were at the scene. But we do know, obviously, that Seth had some drugs in his system when this happened. And so that would make you think that those things would be tested. But then again, I'm not positive on what police did and didn't do because it was an open investigation and I wasn't getting a whole lot of answers about that.
Yeah. I got to let you go. You have done an excellent job with this. I really appreciate you for being a part of letting me use your because you did the work. Basically, but small plug here. Wait a minute, hold on. Don't cut me off. Don't cut me off because my producer cut me off here. As somebody that hosts the show, you want to be like, yeah, producer, be quiet. You're on air today at what time?
I am. I'm on air today at 5, and I also have another special report coming up tonight at 10 about school violence and incidents of violence that have been reported at our local schools. So people might want to tune into that too.
Yeah, I know that will be that'll probably be interesting for a lot of parents too. Yes. And look, here's an invitation. If you want to come in and have a one-on-one conversation, like an hour or two, anytime with our public, please feel free. Be part of this family as well. Come on over. Just call me up and say, can I come to your show today? I'll let you host. Give me a day off, please.
I love it. I will definitely take you up on that.
But thank you so much again, because I think you did an excellent job with the report. I know a lot of folks appreciate it. I sat there with my mouth wide open, so I'm saying, oh my God. So I got to call her. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. And today at 5 o'clock and also 10 tonight then, right?
Yep, absolutely.
I
Thanks
appreciate
so much.
you again. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Katie Moore from Channel 4, y'all joining us. All right, take the break. Do you want to take the break? Take the break. Good Lord. And take the break. We'll come back. We'll also reach out for the IPM here for the Independent Police Monitor's Office. You're listening to WBOK. It's 12:30 a.m. It's what New Orleans is talking about.
Hello, New Orleans.
Of this sort, find out.
Lucky, caring for my brother is far from easy. But he's a part of me, like my arms and legs, so I'll be his. No time for tired. Nothing can disable this love.
Support media. Thursday, you will be caught in an extreme flash flood.
Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
Realizing that mommy and daddy haven't eaten in a
We afford pay for me.
Schools. WB.
Well, you
That's
need to talk
fine.
to Paul, because that's what he was doing. I don't even know if that's what he's working in.
What New Orleans is talking about. WBOK, 12:30 a.m. We're back with more reality check on WBOK. Call in with your comments and questions at 504-582-9422. All right, 504-582-9422 is the number to get in contact with me. Gerard Stevens with you. Woo, what a day. And this is just Tuesday. It is just Tuesday. I want to thank Katie Moore from Channel 4 for being on with us and giving us permission. And I do have to say thank you, because she did the work. And letting us use her story as we learn more about the Seth Donaldson death. I don't want to call it suicide, because there are too many questions there. And I think that we have to pay attention to how we classify certain things and what's wrong with New Orleans. You understand what I'm saying? What's wrong with New Orleans in the sense of we're finding out just by having this conversation. And Miss Amy, I know you're listening right now, but understand what I'm saying too. Because one of the things we need to understand is your son's death could actually be doing a greater good for a whole bunch of folks. That sounds very selfish. So let me tell you what I mean by that.
I thought so back in
If we find out that all these pane windows
he's so confused about the
have been put into these high-rise buildings because somebody either took a payment, there's some deputy or some I said deputy, but developer that's trying to cut corners. If we find this out, then what's going to happen is that your son's death is going to make somebody check up on it. And I think, in all honesty, that could be something for the greater good of New Orleans and the folks that won't have to go through the same thing under, I don't know how to put it any other way except saying, this could be doing some folks some greater good, and I hope you understand. And that's what I meant. Nobody wants to know that their child is doing something of this sort, find out on your own, not under the expense of using my child, but find out on your own. So I don't know where this is going. I'm texting, I'm calling, I'm talking to everybody. And the reason why is because I want to make sure that all I's are dotted and all T's are crossed. And if I don't...
No, we crossed the I's and we dotted the T's.
Then I'm thinking I'm doing a half-assed job. Does that make sense for you? If I don't, I think I'm doing a bad job and putting all these different things together. You know what? Let her know, because I'm having my producer to call the IP, because that's who it's supposed to be, IPM. Let her know we're going to call her at 3, right after the break.
So to think about this,
we're going to do it at 3 o'clock. Because the independent police monitor is also going to join us. Because I'm talking so much and talking to people so much, I'm losing track of time, and I'm also pushing my producer to move some stuff around here, which is, bad thing when you're trying to keep on target.
Inspector General made them just last week. And I mean, even since then,
I put in a call too,
and they still lie.
And I doubt I get a return telephone call. I put a call into the coroner's office. I don't think that they're going to call me back, because a lot of this is making reference to that office. Mm-hmm. And I just want to make sure to give them the opportunity. I know Mr. McKenna. Mr. McKenna doesn't know me. You don't try to make Mr. McKenna mad, because Mr. McKenna will cut you out. So I got a call into his office. I want him to speak upon this as well. And I think that he will, but again, you never know. You never know. You got to take another break. All right, take another break. Catch up.
Take another break.
With the mustard. There we go.
What is that song?
Some of us have just put our trust in all these different situations, and I got to tell you, I'm sounding like Fred Sanford every single day. Don't do it, dummy. Don't do it. So what does that mean? There's another part of this story that sometime next hour we'll be hearing too, that Katie Moore did. You heard me ask her about the shattering of glass and what she found out in her investigation, as she talked about the different tempered glasses along with the regular paned glass. You will hear that part as well. We will also talk in just a few minutes to the IPM, the Independent Police Monitor. The deputy is going to be with us. I guess we got a little bit mixed up in our timing. That would be on me, but we're going to find out. All right. What a day. And of course, we want to hear from you, because my folks are texting me going like, what in the world? I know. And Miss Amy is online with us as well. We're going to talk to her next hour as well. And Miss Amy, I got to tell you, unfortunately, what I'm finding out in this part of the story is that a lot of people just didn't know. They just didn't know, which is terrible. Never heard of it. All right, top of the hour coming up. We'll come right back and we'll talk to the Independent Police Monitor. More coming up in just a minute right here at WBOK. Tape around it and a couple other things, because I killed it. Thank you so much for joining us. And your position is you're deputy of the Independent Police Monitor?
Yes, sir. I'm the Deputy Independent Police Monitor for the City of New Orleans. So I report to the Independent Police Monitor.
Who is Susan Hudson herself?
Yes.
Okay. Can we get into, you'll tell me how far I can go here. This issue or this case that we see with the death of Seth Donaldson, who's been classified as a suicide, his folks, especially his mom and dad, are saying that they don't think that this is the case, and looking at police work here and saying under their preview that there is some shoddy police work. are there some things that need to be improved here to give them some type of closure?
Well, I think just speaking generally that anytime we have multiple agencies on a response for an individual that has died, we want to make sure that all of those agencies are working effectively to make sure that any necessary investigation is being conducted on both sides. So here we had Louisiana State Troopers, we had our coroner's office, and we had the NOPD on the scene. So we are in the process of conducting a thorough review of all of the investigations that were conducted on the NOPD side, because that's the only side that we have jurisdiction over. And we do want to make sure that if it was required that there was an investigation conducted, that investigation was conducted.
I think that Ms. Donaldson stated that she met with someone from the IPM's office and stating that there have been some complaints put together by her. Am I right in assuming that?
Yes.
With that being said, though, those complaints, and I think you told me that you all had to then thoroughly go through and compile them, correct?
Yes. So our office is a complaint intake site. So anyone in New Orleans can come to us and can talk to us about any allegation of police misconduct. And here we did receive complaints from Ms. Donaldson regarding police misconduct for how her son's death was investigated and the response that occurred afterwards.
And with that being stated, and I need to ask this correctly, so make sure you correct me if I'm asking wrong. That complaint and the compilation of what you had to do and putting that together, you then forward it to the powers that be over at NOPD then, correct?
Yes. So at this time, we do not have investigatory powers. That means we can't conduct our own investigation.
Okay.
So it does mean that we compile a complaint referral. And what we do in that complaint referral is we review what information the complainant has provided us. And then we make some preliminary recommendations on possible misconduct allegations that could be raised against officers. And then we do a preliminary identification of what officers could be included in any misconduct investigation. We also start reviewing, in a very preliminary sense, some information that might be available about the incident. So we might review field identification cards, electronic police reports, or body-worn camera footage. And then we compile that into a complaint referral. We send that to the Public Integrity Bureau with the expectation that they conduct an investigation. Now, we might monitor some parts of that investigation, or at the end of the investigation, we might decide to complete a case review. And that's where we take every aspect of the misconduct investigation that was conducted by the Public Integrity Bureau or the NOPD, whatever branch of the NOPD conducted the investigation, and we review every part of that investigation to determine whether or not it was a thorough, fair, impartial investigation that considered all of the concerns that were raised by the complainant.
And then what happens? Is that supposed to be answered? Should there be an official answer that comes back to you? Does that go to Ms. Donaldson? Where does it go from there?
So from there, there's kind of a couple different places where it can go.
Okay. Now, notice what you said. You said it can go.
Where it can go. So based on what we find when we complete the case review, it can start a series of conversations with relevant NOPD leadership about possible next steps to possibly rectify aspects of that investigation. And by rectify, I mean just address gaps or confusion. We also will use it as part of a wider conversation with NOPD about their tactics, their training, their policies, and the way that they handle similar situations. Because we always want to look to the bigger picture whenever we're working with any individual, and we always want to make sure that no other family is ever put in the same position again. Now, of course, when we're complete with our case review, we are going to provide a copy to Ms. Donaldson for her to be able to review and to be able to add to her documentation on this incident. And from there, she can use that case review in any conversation she might be having with other agencies.
So let me make sure I got this correct. So that means that you all are still working on her issues. You don't have them completed yet.
No, we do not. So right now, there's one misconduct investigation that was completed by the NOPD. We met with Ms. Donaldson and continued facilitating conversations between Ms. Donaldson and the leadership at NOPD. At the end of those facilitated conversations, Ms. Donaldson did elect to raise a new complaint against the NOPD. And we took that new complaint and we have sent it to the NOPD. Our understanding is that is currently being investigated by the Office of the Inspector General. So upon the completion of that investigation, we are going to complete a case review of both of the misconduct investigations that were conducted.
Does the NOPD have to answer this incident? Because I noticed you said, and where does this go? You said it can go, but do they have to answer these complaints?
Yes, they do. They have to respond to the complaint that's sent to them. They do not have to investigate the complaint, but they do have to process it, as in they have to receive it, they have to consider it, they have to conduct some type of preliminary steps if they're choosing not to investigate the case. And by case, I mean the complaint.
Yeah, so how did you answer the complaint if you don't investigate it, though?
Well, that would be if, say, for example, we sent over a complaint and the NOPD determined that wasn't actually an officer that was involved in the incident. Or say they determined that the behavior that was being alleged isn't actually a violation of NOPD policy. Then they might determine that is a matter that doesn't require further investigation, in which case they would close it out with no further investigation merited. But for the most part, if you're alleging misconduct through our office, you're going to see some type of investigation conducted.
So where are we with this together? Because I know you're saying you met with her last week, but where are you? That right now you're saying that the complaint that she put in, the next complaint that she put in, you're still doing the preliminary research on it. You're investigating it yourself. What's going on?
So right now, the complaint that was submitted to us by Ms. Donaldson has been submitted to the NOPD. And our understanding is that NOPD has elected to use a memorandum of understanding, an MOU, to have the investigation conducted by the Office of the Inspector General.
Okay.
Our understanding is that investigation is now pending under the jurisdiction of the Office of the Inspector General. We do not have jurisdiction over the Office of the Inspector General. We only have jurisdiction over the NOPD. But upon the completion of that investigation, we'll have a far more thorough understanding of all the steps that were taken by the NOPD on behalf of the Donaldsons, and we'll be in a better position to be able to offer recommendations and an assessment on that investigation.
And I just see how thorough she is. This lady got a binder, you know, of information that made me go, holy cow.
Yes, she's been a wonderful advocate for her son. And if we can just say that we've really enjoyed working with her, though, of course, not under these circumstances. But she has been a fierce advocate for her son, and we really admire that. She's also shown a lot of patience as she's worked with all these different agencies that have touched on this investigation. And we know that has been a challenging process.
Well, one of the things I had to put down and slow my roll on, I said, how come you all weren't out at the investigative scene? And I was like, that was not a police-involved shooting.
Correct. So if it was an officer-involved shooting or which we would call a critical incident, or if there was an in-custody death, so if there had been a death while this individual was in custody, then yes, our office would be out there, as our office always is for any critical incident or in-custody death. And we would have been able to monitor the investigation from within the first hour.
Wow. One of the questions I would have for you, did you get a chance to listen to the 911 tapes? And are the 911 operators also under your preview, or is that just the police department?
So at this time, we can't comment about what steps exactly we're going to be reviewing and what we've already reviewed or will be reviewing in the future. But I will say that 911 operators, are not under our purview, our jurisdiction. That's part of the Orleans Parish Communication District.
Right.
And we do consider them a partner agency. We do work with them. So that means that if we do receive a complaint regarding how anyone on the command desk responds to a 911 call, we will provide that complaint to their office for them to be able to conduct a swift investigation into it. And they do. They have talked to us about how they investigate allegations of misconduct. And they do have their own process in place.
Well, let me throw this into you. I don't know how far you can go, but one of the things that I find out in this, this whole scenario is the fact that this was called out as a suicide before it was ruled a suicide. So I'm trying to figure out how does someone call out a suicide for the officers to go investigate and before there is a classification of suicide.
So that's going to kind of go into a different jurisdictional element than what we oversee. But I will say that, there are preliminary classifications that are made that might change during the course of an investigation.
Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to put something together that doesn't necessarily mean it's a violation of anything then, correct?
It may be, it may not be. We can't say at this time.
Okay. Very good. Well, you answered all my questions. I really appreciate y'all for being a part of this. Tell Susan I said hello and keep up the good work.
Of course. We appreciate your time and attention on this important matter.
And we're going to, keep talking about this because I think that, no one wants to hear of a child or anyone losing their life because of, going out of a window. But I think there is something wrong here, and that's just my personal opinion. I'm not asking you to comment on that part, but I will say that if we have some more questions or we bring this up again, I'd appreciate it if you or Miss Hudson would join us and come in studio or whatever and be a part of the conversation because you all are very much welcome to be here all the time.
And we appreciate that. And the community is always our first priority. So anything we can do to make sure that we're including the community in our work. And your show, this is a great opportunity for us to be in communication with the community that we're seeking to serve. So, yes, please.
I appreciate you again. Thank you much.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye.
That is Miss Stella Cement, who is with the Independent Police Monitor of the NOPD. All right, y'all. 504-582-9422 is our number. What are you getting out of this? Because we're going to come back. We're going to play this second piece from Katie Moore. The second piece that comes from Katie Moore in her... I'm just looking at it and I got to shake my head, y'all. I'm lost for words. Because what I'm finding out is that there's something wrong with this. If it's not the investigation part, it's the part about the windows. Makes me think twice before I go into a high-rise. More coming up, folks. Tell me what you think. 504-582-9422. You're listening to WBOK. It is what? Like you. One of the things, too, that make... With your comments and questions at 504-582-9422. All right, folks, take your time. 3:23 now. Today's a different day for me. I have not been lost for words in a long time, Wick. That's why I'm like, I don't know what to say. I'm stuttering in here today. I'm like, what do you say? What do you say when you know you got a young man who lost his life? You got his mom on one end of the phone. You got the lady who did the investigation for television on the other end of the phone. You're trying to do as much as you can to reach out for these folks that you have some type of relationship with, like the Independent Police Monitor, like the police chief, like somebody like a Katie Moore. And you're not getting... In every tune, you got somebody saying, oh, yeah, but we didn't tell you this. And I got a mother with a whole binder of stuff that she's saying these are unanswered questions. And one of the things, too, that make me go, we really need to be paying attention to this, too, because the next time you go into a high-rise building, you might want to think twice before you lean on that window, before you are sitting around that window thinking that it's safe and you're not going to go out it. and what's happening with our high-rise buildings. This is part 2 of Shattered, which was featured by Katie Moore of Channel 4. And this is something that she found out, too, about tempered glass, plate glass, and all the different classifications of glass that we are going through and that we have in our buildings.
Seth Donaldson fell to his death through a 12th floor window last October in the CBD. The Orleans Parish coroner called it a suicide, but New Orleans police are taking another look at the case. One of the central questions clouding his death is how. How could the window break like that? The quest to find the answer to that question raises another. How safe are the windows in high-rise buildings? How easily are they shattered? Glass.
The neighbor.
If you think about it, it's both a protector and a killer.
He had so much going for it. He was infectious.
In an instant,
At least give us justice.
it can flip from your best friend
We're gonna fight.
to a scorned lover.
As a possible homicide.
I honestly didn't even know glass in a skyscraper was allowed to break that easily. It still doesn't make sense.
Seth will ultimately be cremated and his ashes spread. And I plan on placing him with a marker at my office in the back, in the garden. And on a warm day, you'll find me there, having lunch with my son.
With each piece, each pane, each shard, hiding a translucent little secret deep within.
It's never all cleaned up.
We revere it, yet fear it, because you can't see or feel how much it would take to make it break.
You need to? Yeah. Why? Because I think short looks better. Do you think short looks better or long looks better?
Seth Donaldson had a bright future.
He had so much going for him.
He wanted to be a chef. He was working at Commander's Palace.
Very energetic, very hardworking.
That hope ended. His life ended. October 28th, when he crashed through this window and fell to his death. Did he jump through it? Did he fall through it?
Just a lot of loud noise there.
Was he pushed through it?
It sounded like they struggled a little bit.
His parents say the investigation into his death was fatally flawed. But that's not the end of this story.
He fell through a window?
I think if he were thrown up against the window accidentally, there's a very big problem with the window.
You can get through a window, but it ain't easy. Shouldn't be easy.
Are high-rise windows safe?
There's a crack in everything. Like he says, that's how the light gets in.
The story of that window begins back in time, 6 decades back in time, in 1953 as an office building. But architect Marcel Wisnia converted it to apartments in 2011. Wisnia once estimated to the state that Saratoga would cost $31.5 million to convert it to apartments. But there's nothing in city records to indicate that he changed out the building's original 1950s windows.
He's actually beating on this.
I went to a window expert to find out what 1950s windows might be. So, Ronnie, how long have you been working in the glass business?
About 45 years.
45 years. So you know a little bit about glass.
A little bit. Would actually be put in.
He has supervised window installation for projects as small as a door, as big as a high-rise hotel. If I learned anything from talking with him, it's that windows and the glass inside them are not created equal.
Neolaminate 9/16/030-015.
I showed him this video taken of the window Seth Donaldson smashed through when he fell to his death out of Unit 1201 at the Saratoga Lofts. Like razor-sharp teeth, big shards of glass remained tucked in the window frame.
It almost absolutely had to be annealed, non-heat-treated glass. I can't see how he could go through it otherwise.
Annealed glass, what we commonly call plate glass. Depending on the thickness of it, it's the easiest to break. And one of the only ways to spot it is after it breaks. It shatters into big chunks that can cut like a knife.
It broke like annealed glass, and as old as that building is, I would be really surprised if they had heat-strengthened glass in there. Although, if it would have been heat-strengthened, it's very possible he wouldn't have gone through it because it's much stronger. And he probably, not much chance at all, he would have gone through it if it was tempered.
Each type of glass breaks differently. Take tempered glass, for example. A hit head-on with a hammer does nothing. But tempered glass does have weak points along the edges. Hit one of those, even that can be considered safer than the type of glass likely in the Saratoga windows because the little pebbles are not as sharp. In fact, New Orleans Glass uses them to pad their parking lot.
The show today.